I took one day. Didn't sleep the night. The next morning I said, yes, I will do it. So that is how my own personal association with the book started on that starting day. So then it was 79, and so we said, okay, you become my co-author in basic topology, because that was the next book coming. And I became a co-author with the third edition. Actually, Martha actually wrote nothing in this version of the book, but she had left to become New Journal of Medicine. But she wasn't sure how much she would like there, so we kept her name that she wanted to come back. It wouldn't look like she was absent of her period of time. Essentially, he and I divided the book into two equal halves. He said, you write one half, I write one half. Fair? So basic pathology then went to the fourth edition. Marshall dropped out. It became Vinay Kumar. Fifth edition, I asked Dr. Kutran to join us because by this time in 1983, I had joined pathology chemistry disease. Okay. So then we published the 6th edition, the 7th edition, and the 8th edition, which is the current edition. Unfortunately, by this time, Dr. Kutran and Dr. Robbins both had expired, and I asked Dr. Foster and Dr. Mitchell to join me. And I think in the same way that Dr. Anthony Kutran brought experimental pathology vision into the Robbins book, I brought, if I may say so, basic molecular biology. Because that is what I did for a living. So there was more and more focus on pathophysiology, and I used to always be a very good sketcher. So I used to start making diagrams and sketches and so on and so forth. So we introduced color art and line art. And the way it worked out was that when we were revising this small book, we were trying ideas to see if they are good for the big book. It was like an incubator. We used to do experiments in this edition, and then we transport them to the next. So for 23 years, Stanley Robbins, Ramsey Kutran, an American Jew, a Palestinian, and Hindustani. You can imagine three different casts of characters, okay, all being together. And we were partners. And we wrote together the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th editions of basic pathology, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th editions of pathologic disease. And I say here, I don't mean that casually. This was a partnership made in heaven. Why was it a partnership made in heaven? A very, very important principle in my life I learned at that time. These two gentlemen who were far senior to me, they were far more accomplished than I was. We all treat each other with equal respect. With equal. We were all equal. Once we joined, it didn't matter. I was an assistant professor, and he was a professor, and he was the chairman of our department. We were all equal. We had the same ability to argue with each other. We heard respectfully with each other. We made our viewpoint. But in the end, it was not who is senior, who is the big dog. In the end, it was the intellectual force of the argument which won the day. And that is why this partnership thrived and sustained itself, because it was based on mutual respect for each other. It's a very, very important thing to remember for making. No relationships last very long if they are on unequal basis. So, after that 6th edition, unfortunately, Dr. Ramsey Kutran had a premature death. He had a metastatic uveal melanoma. And so, I was the only person left from those 3. And I can tell you how scared I was, because I said, now I have to do this book now. I have to carry his legacy without the help of these distinguished, pathologists. So I looked around the world and around the country, and I found 2 actually outstanding co-authors Abul Abbas, who is also an AIMS graduate, who is the chair of pathology at UCSF, and Dr. Nelson Foster, who is the chair of pathology at University of Washington, Seattle, former editor-in-chief of American Journal of Pathology. Very distinguished, very distinguished pathologist. So we brought out the 7th edition, which is the current edition, as you know. And I'm pleased to tell you that the 8th edition is almost complete. Chapter 28 is in my briefcase. There are 29 chapters. And in this, we have added one more person, John Astor, who is at the Brigham Hospital. Same idea. John is one of the world's leaders in notch signaling and leukemias. Okay. Because we realized that even though Abbas and myself and Nelson are also investigators, but he's the investigator of the next generation. Okay. You should read his work. It's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. He does crystallography, he signs out hematopathology at the Brigham Hospital. Okay? He also does crystal structure. He also does mutagenesis. He develops animal models. And so we were actually delighted that he's going to join our team in the 8th edition, which shall be forthcoming. The last few minutes I want to spend with you about some personal anecdotes of working with these two people. Working with Stanley Robbins. That's Stanley Robbins. So, where does this phrase come from? There's a story behind it. When I first joined him and we were doing basic pathology, he and I sat down and he said, okay, Vinay, you got to do half the chapters, I go to half the chapters. Okay? You have the first chapter. You pick, there are 21 chapters in the book at that time, you pick 10 or 11 and I'll do that. So of course, what I did was I put all done in the first chapter, I said, fine, secondary information, repair, genetics, nucleus, etc. That's what I was most comfortable with. And we finished 6-7 chapters. And then he said, you're going to pick 3 more. Your job is half of this. So I looked very carefully and said, male genetic system, very short, 18 pages. I said, I'll take that. Okay. Environmental disease, nobody wanted to write. Okay? I'll take that. Okay. And there are a couple of other ones. So when I started revising the book, I said, what would be the best way to start? Take the easiest chapter, shortest chapter, finish it first. Okay? And you finish one chapter and say, okay, now I have one chapter done. Okay? So I started building the system. So I wrote